Fresh homemade pies. Only a few left.
The rain had been falling for hours when Lillian realized she might not have enough money to sleep indoors that night. Cars swept through wet streets, throwing water against pavement. People hurried past beneath umbrellas without looking at her. She was cold, hungry, and frightened, but she refused to beg. Her mother had taught her that hardship could take away comfort and security, but it should never take away dignity.
Pull over. Stop the car beside her.
Across the street, a black limousine had stopped at a traffic light. Inside sat Marcus, one of the wealthiest men in Rosehaven City. His companies owned hotels, hospitals, office towers. People described him as powerful and untouchable. They did not know that his enormous house felt empty every night. They did not know that an old photograph remained locked inside the bottom drawer of his desk. They did not know that the most successful man in the city had spent more than 20 years wondering why the woman he loved had disappeared.
Yes, sir. Several pies inside. They are not perfect, but they are fresh.
Marcus was watching Lillian. There was something about the way she stood in the rain that held his attention. She looked exhausted, yet she smiled whenever someone passed. Each rejection wounded her, but she carefully hid the disappointment and tried again. The traffic light changed. He instructed his driver to pull over beside her.
What is your name?
The moment Marcus heard the name, his entire body stilled. His jaw tightened. His hand reached out to touch the basket, but stopped short. Rain continued to fall on his face, but his eyes never left hers. Something impossible had just become real.
Lillian Everly. Why are you asking me these questions?
Marcus stepped backward as though struck. His driver emerged from the limousine with an umbrella in concern. Marcus raised a hand to stop him without turning away from Lillian. The name seemed to echo silently between them. Years of loss and longing suddenly condensed into a single rainy moment on a city street.
You are freezing. I told you I would come back for you. Where is your mother now? The person who taught you to make this pie.
Lillian watched Marcus's reaction, her hand instinctively reaching toward her neck, where the birthmark waited beneath her hair. Ethan moved protectively closer to her. Marcus stood motionless in the rain. The three formed a triangle of tension and confusion as rain fell like a curtain separating different worlds.
Alexander, where are you? A news crew is covering the storm. Your car appeared in the background.
Marcus heard his phone ring. He removed it from his coat with wet hands. The name Clara appeared on the screen. His entire body tensed as though receiving a physical blow. His eyes closed for a moment, as though steeling himself for something he had known was coming for decades.
You knew my mother. You loved her, didn't you?
Lillian's hand moved to her neck, where the birthmark waited beneath her hair. Ethan stepped directly in front of her in a protective stance. Lillian's face became pale as pieces of her mother's past suddenly came into focus. Her eyes moved between Marcus and Ethan, as though trying to determine which world was real.
I am standing with a young woman selling pies in the rain. Do not hang up.
Your sister knew my mother. Clara Whitmore. That is the name written in my mother's sewing box.
Marcus stood in the rain with the phone pressed to his ear. His sister was hundreds of miles away in her study, but the connection between them spanned years of lies and secrets. Both were frozen in the moment when everything was about to change. One called seeking answers. The other held them all, guarded behind decades of carefully constructed deception.
You do not have to remain here if you feel uncomfortable. I can take you somewhere safe.
I believe your mother was prevented from returning to me. I believe that now.
The three moved through the rain toward the Crown Meridian Hotel. Lillian walked between the two men who protected her in different ways. Her feet moved automatically while her mind processed impossible truths. Benjamin followed at a distance in the limousine. The rain seemed to fall harder as though the sky understood the magnitude of revelation. Evelyn stood outside a small cottage in Bellwether, holding a pie in both hands. Flour covered her cheek. She was laughing at the camera with unguarded joy. The scene glowed with warm golden light, suggesting this moment had been held precious in someone's heart for decades.
I need something retrieved tonight before he does. A wooden sewing box. Mrs. Bramwell's boarding house on Delqua Street.
I am not hungry. And this is not your concern.
Marcus observed Lillian across the sitting room table. His fingers touched the untouched pie with reverence. Years of loss were written across his face in the moment he recognized not just a recipe, but proof of love surviving across decades of separation. This pie was not coincidence. It was impossible evidence.
You do not have to face this alone. You are allowed to be afraid.
You may be my daughter. I believe it because you are her perfect replica.
Lillian stood abruptly and walked toward the hotel window. Ethan remained seated but watched her with the attention of someone who had been waiting for this moment. Lillian's reflection was visible in the glass, with wet city lights behind her. Her body language radiated both hope and devastating fear. Evelyn stood in the doorway of a small cottage kitchen, pushing Marcus back playfully. Flour covered both their hands. Golden afternoon light streamed through windows. Their faces were close together, with the absolute certainty of people who believed they would always have time.
Do not damage anything else. I care that it is done before midnight.
My father was absent for 22 years. And I was sent to people who treated me like a burden.
Lillian's eyes filled with tears as she spoke. Marcus rose from his chair with a movement suggesting he wanted to comfort her, but recognized he had not earned that right. The distance between them spanned more than just physical space. It held decades of separation and questions neither had been able to answer alone.
I cannot demand forgiveness. I can only uncover the truth and allow you to decide my place in your life.
Lillian reached into her coat pocket and removed her mother's silver locket on a thin chain. Ethan moved to stand beside her. Marcus watched from across the room as the physical evidence of his daughter's existence was revealed. The moment felt suspended outside of time itself. The silver locket was opened in close-up, revealing the letter A engraved on the outside and a small teardrop-shaped sapphire resting inside. The camera slowly pulled back to show Marcus's face as he recognized the engagement ring he had placed on Evelyn's finger 30 years earlier. Impossible proof. Visible truth. Victoria opened a small locked tin box she had kept hidden for decades. Her hands trembled as she removed forged letters and an old photograph. She whispered to someone only she could hear, her words carrying the weight of secrets maintained through force of will alone. The cost of control had finally come due. Lillian spoke to Marcus about the night her mother became ill. She remembered waking to hear her calling his name from a nightmare. The memory became real in her words. Her voice carried the weight of a child trying to understand adult sorrow. Evelyn lay in a small bedroom. Her face was pale and her breathing shallow. Her hand reached out in sleep towards someone not present. Her whispered words called for Marcus. The ache of a love that decades could not diminish filled the small, cold room.
When that girl returns home, I need her room searched. Find everything before Alexander understands what he is looking for.
You do not have to trust him immediately. You can take time to decide.
The three of them moved through the hotel lobby together. Marcus went ahead with Benjamin following at a distance. Ethan and Lillian walked with careful space between them, but with their hands almost touching. The city lights were visible through tall windows beyond them. Each understood that the next moment would define everything.
My sister knew you would eventually find me. She has spent 22 years ensuring you would not.
Lillian listened to Marcus with her hand instinctively reaching toward Ethan's. Ethan's fingers curled around hers with the gentleness of someone who had been waiting to offer exactly this comfort. The rain continued to fall around them as they prepared to move toward truth together. Ethan's apartment above his architectural studio was modest and warm, with soft lighting. Lillian entered and looked around at the space that had become safe haven. Her eyes lingered on simple details that spoke of care and intention. The contrast between this space and the world outside made it feel like sanctuary.
Find him. Do not let him reach the boarding house first.
You do not have to sleep on the sofa. The bed is large enough for 2 people.
Go directly to Delqua Street.
We are running out of time.
Lillian and Ethan in his apartment. Ethan's hands moving gently to her face. His thumbs brushed away tears she had not realized were falling. The moment was suspended in tenderness that had been building between them for nearly a year. Finally allowed, finally real. Ethan kissed Lillian slowly and carefully. The kiss carried no urgency or pressure, but instead a careful tenderness that spoke of months of restraint finally released. Both of them surrendered to something that had been waiting patiently to be acknowledged.
It is too late then. Release the statement immediately.
Lillian and Ethan lay in the darkness of his bedroom. Her head rested on his chest. His arms surrounded her. Her breathing finally became slow and even as she allowed herself to rest, knowing she was protected. The camera slowly pulled back to show them in quiet peace. Marcus arrived at Mrs. Bramwell's boarding house. The front door stood partly open. Benjamin immediately moved to check the perimeter. Marcus climbed the stairs with growing dread, knowing what he would find. Stolen evidence, erased truth, the destruction of final proof.
This was Clara. She knew exactly what she was looking for. Check the floorboards.
Lillian's phone rang in the early morning hours. Her sleep was interrupted. Her body tensed before she even knew why. Ethan's arm tightened around her as she reached to answer. The moment of peace was shattered by the outside world intruding on their sanctuary. Evelyn sat at a small desk in a modest apartment. She wrote with careful deliberation in a letter that would become the only truth her daughter would ever possess. Her face showed the resignation of someone who accepted that her love would have to survive across separation.
The sewing box is gone. Victoria took everything. But we have other options.
I want to understand everything. I want to know what happened to my mother and why.
Ethan was awake now and watching Lillian speak on the phone. His hand found hers in the darkness. Both understood that this moment marked the beginning of the end of their isolation from the larger world. Lillian's past was becoming a force that would reshape their present.
Have the car brought around. I will meet with him myself.
Lillian and Ethan prepared to leave his apartment. Both understood that the safety they had built was about to be tested against forces larger than either of them. Lillian looked back at the space that had held her through the early days of discovery. She was ready to face what came next. The Whitmore estate stood grand and imposing in early morning light. The gates opened to allow Marcus's limousine to pass through. The drive was lined with trees bending slightly in wind, carrying the scent of distant rain. Power and wealth appeared as empty monuments in the pale light.
You look like you have not slept. That girl has made you careless.
Lillian and Ethan arrived at the Whitmore estate as the confrontation began. Both understood that this was the moment when Lillian's past would finally become visible. The woman who had shaped so much of her suffering would have to face the cost of her choices. Evelyn held young Lillian close. Her face showed the weight of knowledge that her daughter would grow up without her. Her eyes were filled with love she would not have time to fully express.
You intercepted every letter. You sent her lies. You forced her away while she was carrying my child.
My mother spent her whole life afraid of you. Afraid you would take me from her. She died afraid.
Victoria's composure finally broke. Her hand gripped the back of a chair. Marcus stood rigid with the weight of decades finally understood. Lillian remained still with the strength that came from finally speaking truth directly to the person who created her suffering.
I protected him from losing everything to a woman who could never belong inside this world.
Ethan quietly placed his phone inside his jacket pocket with the recording function running. His actions were precise and deliberate. He understood that this moment needed to be preserved as evidence of truth finally being spoken aloud. Police sirens approached the Whitmore estate in the distance. The sound grew closer. Marcus had instructed his driver to call them before entering the house. He understood that what was about to be confessed required witness and accountability.
You will give the police a full statement about what happened to Evelyn. You will return every item that remains.
The truth made you afraid. That is what you were really protecting him from.
I told her Alexander wanted nothing to do with the child. I made her leave.
Officers led Victoria from the Whitmore estate as she spoke her confession. Lillian and Ethan watched with the clarity that came from witnessing justice finally moving forward. Marcus stood apart with the expression of someone who lost his sister but gained his daughter. A medical clinic several days later, clean and professional. The three waited in quiet anticipation for the DNA test results that would make official what had already been understood in their hearts. Science confirming what love had always known.
The DNA results show a 99.93% probability that you are the biological father.
Lillian's breath stopped as the doctor spoke. Her hand reached out and found Ethan's. Both understood that everything had now been officially confirmed and changed forever. The moment was suspended in quiet possibility. Marcus and Lillian exited the clinic together into afternoon light. The three stood at the threshold between past suffering and possible future. All understood that the next moment would define whether forgiveness and family were still possible after such profound betrayal.
I looked for you longer than I should admit. I stopped believing I would ever understand what happened to you.
Lillian and Ethan walked together through the cemetery gates. Her hand was in his. Both understood that this moment was sacred and necessary. The woman who gave Lillian life deserved to be remembered and honored even in absence. Evelyn's gravestone appeared in view, small and gray with her name carved deeply into stone. The simple reminder of a life lived in struggle and silence. Flowers and grass surrounded it with the quiet beauty of peaceful rest.
I am sorry it took our daughter selling pies in the rain to bring me here. I am sorry I did not search harder.
Lillian knelt beside Marcus before Evelyn's gravestone. Her hand reached out and touched the stone gently. Both of them were paying respects to the woman who connected them through a love that survived separation and decades. The past finally honored. Ethan and Marcus stood back, allowing Lillian private time to mourn and remember her mother. Both men understood that this moment belonged to her alone. The cemetery became sacred space where grief and love finally met.
Thank you for letting me come. Thank you for finally telling the truth.
The three walked together toward the car parked near the cemetery gates. All understood that what had been closed was now open. What had been broken might possibly be healed. Family could exist in forms unexpected and hard-won. Marcus's house that evening was simple and elegant. A table was set with plain white plates and warm lighting. The space was prepared for intimate gathering rather than grand event. The absence of pretense spoke volumes about transformation.
No chefs tonight. Only food. I wanted nothing pretending to be something more.
Lillian set the pie on the table. Ethan watched her with the expression of someone who had waited patiently and was now being rewarded with her trust and affection. Both understood that this dinner marked a beginning rather than an ending. Evelyn appeared one final time, not in memory, but in presence. She stood unseen in the dining room, watching her daughter finally safe and finally home with people who loved her truly. Her face showed the peace of an answered prayer finally delivered.
It is not quite hers, but it is close enough to break my heart.
Give it time. I am still learning to bake it the way she did.
The three sat around the simple table. Ethan raised his glass with words that honored the woman whose legacy connected all of them together. The moment felt suspended in gratitude and recognition of love's power to survive betrayal.
To Evelyn, and to the two people she never stopped watching over.
All three raised their glasses together. The moment was suspended in recognition of love that transcends death and betrayal. Family was defined not by biology alone, but by the choice to show up, tell truth, and honor what matters most. Months passed, suggested through changing light and seasons. Lillian and Ethan built a shared life together in his apartment. Marcus learned to be a father in the time he was stolen. All three moved forward with the slow and difficult work of healing and growth.
Your drawings have improved. This one has you, Ethan, and me all smiling. That is new.
Lillian and Ethan found a small apartment together. Both worked their careers with new confidence. Both moved forward knowing that they had been tested and had chosen each other deliberately and completely. The space they shared felt like sanctuary. Evelyn appeared one final time in Lillian's dreams. She stood in a kitchen filled with warm light. Her face showed the pride of a mother who saw her daughter finally flourishing. Her spirit was at peace, knowing that Lillian was surrounded by love.
This one is my favorite. My mother taught my grandmother how to make it. Now I am teaching my own family.
Ethan worked on a restoration project. His hands were skilled and careful. The joy was visible in his posture as he transformed something broken into something beautiful. His work mirrored his own journey of healing and growth. Marcus sat in his office, but the space had changed. Photographs now showed his true family. His work took on new meaning as he built enterprises with intention to support others, rather than simply accumulate wealth. The three met again at Evelyn's gravestone on a warm afternoon. Flowers were fresh and intentional. All three knelt together to honor the woman whose love created this unlikely family, whose sacrifice made everything that follows possible.
I love you. I have loved you since you accused me of buying pies out of pity.
Lillian and Ethan stood in their apartment looking at a photograph they had framed. It showed Evelyn holding young Lillian. Both had identical gray-blue eyes and dark blonde hair and gentle smiles. Visual proof of lineage and love finally made beautiful. Marcus sat in his study with Evelyn's engagement ring and the sapphire from Lillian's locket placed side by side on his desk. The two pieces fitted together perfectly. His hand touched them gently, as though they were holy relics holding his story. Lillian and Ethan walked through Rosehaven on an evening in early autumn. The city lights began to glow as darkness fell. Both moved with the ease of people who had found their place and chosen to remain. The rain-swept streets now held the promise of tomorrow. Lillian stood in a bright kitchen preparing pie. Her hands moved with practiced confidence. The sweet smell of berries and cinnamon filled the space. The recipe that carried her mother's love now became the foundation of Lillian's own life.
Hi.
You know that feeling when the smallest discovery changes everything? When one moment of kindness or truth suddenly shifts your entire understanding of who you are? This is what this family found. You carry the same capacity within you right now. Tell us, have you ever discovered something that changed everything you thought you knew about your family or your past? Share your story in the comments. We want to hear from you because your story matters too. First, truth, even when painful, is always more healing than the comfortable lie that protects no one. Second, kindness shown without expectation of reward becomes its own reward when we least expect it. Third, family is defined not by biology, but by the choice to show up with love and honesty. If this story moved your heart, please hit like and subscribe. Share it with someone who needs to know that love survives everything. Turn on notifications so you never miss our stories. And tell us in the comments which moment hit you the hardest. Thank you for being here. All the main characters together in a moment of peace and unity, held for several seconds as soft music fades. The word love appears simply on screen. Everything returns to this single transformative force.